love your solos.
Oh, thank you.
I really do.
I know people tend to like gravitate more towards the solos for mine. So yeah.
I 100% do. Well,
Okay.
because I'm just like,
You-
I just want you to
Like,
give me everything that you
right.
have.
Right.
Because people, I mean, it's so interesting because like when I think about even just doing like a Q&A, the number one thing people want to know more of is always about my relationship and about love. And people are just
That's what people want.
That's what they want.
I know.
It doesn't matter who you are, what you're doing. They're like,
I know.
and about your relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They want to know like what's going on with that.
They want to know what's going on with that. And you know, when I just think about relationships in general, I mean, they range from healthy to toxic to all of the things, but you give such a clear and approachable like roadmap of really like, for me, it's this like check-in with yourself and it gives you back the power.
Oh, good. I'm glad that thank you for that feedback. That's wonderful to hear.
It's really true. Whether you're like in a relationship
or not,
married forever. Like I've been with my husband for 14 years.
Have you?
Yes.
Wow.
A really long time. But, you know, when I think about like why we have such a great relationship and why it's worked, it all comes down to like our value system is we share the same values and morals. And people are always like, you guys are so different. Like I would never, like I think people are kind of enamored how like he's in hospitality and sells like liquor and I'm in wellness and don't drink.
Yeah. You don't, it's a myth that you have to be exactly like your spouse or your partner. Like it's the differences that actually create sort of excitement, but it's the core values. That's the thing, and the morals that are so important. It's the glue. Whereas like in a very toxic or unhealthy relationship, usually the glue that holds two people together is their sex or their sex life, or that, you know, that physical attraction. I really think that the glue, it's not that one's sex life isn't part of the glue, but when it comes to longevity in relationships and two people actually really liking each other, not just loving each other, but really liking each other, it's the friendship. And that friendship, I don't know anyone who's friends with anyone else where you don't share those core values and morals. Like that's sort of how you find your community.
Right. Absolutely. And I love how you know, share for people like before they're even getting in a relationship can you talk about like the list or like the 3 to 5 things? Because I think that really helps. And if you're in a relationship.
Sure. So like if you're single and looking for a relationship, I think selection, like who you choose is so incredibly important. It's the most important thing. The other important thing is how you decide to show up and who you are in that relationship. But selection is so important, and we don't. You know, most people, we just learn through trial and error. Like we choose people and it doesn't work out. And then we hopefully get a little bit wiser and choose a different kind of person. Or, you know, we say, oh, I really like this about this person, but, you know, I don't like that about them. And, you know, it's all in the selection. But most of the time when relationships don't work out, and it's not all the time, but it is in a very high percentage, it's because of poor selection. You just didn't select. It's not necessarily, and then it doesn't necessarily mean that person's a bad person. It's just, it's not the right person for you. And so what I wish that I had learned when I was much younger, and what I think has just been unbelievably helpful, is if you can know, like, what are the 3 to 5 things that are absolutely non-negotiable for you to have in a relationship, and for someone who you're going to love, they have to have within themselves. And then what are your deal breakers? And these lists can't be very long, because as I'm sure you know, as someone who's been in a marriage or a relationship for 14 years, there are things you have to just kind of let go of and tolerate. And you both have to do that with each other.
Yes.
Because no one's perfect. But so flexibility is so important. So knowing what is the tolerable versus the intolerable. And when you understand that and you understand, okay, these are my deal breakers, that even if, and you have to be loyal to them. So even if you meet like the hottest person and there's this crazy connection, that inexplicable connection, and that thing that makes us feel so alive in the beginning, and they present with something that's that's one of your deal breakers, you have to run in the opposite direction. That's why they're called a deal breaker. So it can't be like something that like kind of annoys you. It has to be something that literally is the deal breaker, that you just absolutely cannot tolerate in any way, shape, or form.
Like if they don't want kids, or they don't want to move to the city you're in,
or if they're a smoker. That's a deal breaker for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just absolutely not going to happen. Or yes, if they want kids and you don't want kids, or vice versa, or they're not loyal. And then of course you have to define like what loyalty is. Or your deal breaker might be like, they emotionally cheat. If they cheat, it's over. It's over. So you have to decide what that is. And of course you have to hold yourself to the same standard. That's where people kind of forget.
That's what I just wanted to ask you.
You have to hold yourself to the same standard, because can't buy into this myth that there's this perfect person out there who's like waiting to be found by you. And we do this unconsciously. We think, because all of us, if we're really honest with ourselves, deep down inside, like we have this desire to meet someone who's less effed up than we are.
That's the truth.
Like we want someone who's going to sort of be on a higher plane of consciousness than we are, so that we can feel totally loved unconditionally by them. And then we don't have to deal with that stuff. And I think that people intellectually will say, no, I don't expect that. But we kind of hope for that. And so as much as I can just dispel that myth that you have to have a lot of flexibility, but that doesn't mean you lower your standards. You should have a high standard, but you have to also know what's realistic, what's not realistic, and you have to hold yourself to the exact same standard. You just do.
And do you believe like that is why when people are selecting certain partners, and I think it's like the patterns of the selection, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like I've shared your videos to so many people in my life that I just like love so much.
And you just want them to find their way.
Yes. And I also want them to see it. And it's so hard, right? And I'm also a fixer, and I'm really working on not inserting my fixing into people's lives unless it's...
But it's also because you care so much.
I care so much.
Yeah.
And I do think there's something about like sharing a video where it's not me being like, okay, can I, it's very different coming from an expert, a relationship coach like yourself.
Yeah.
But it brings me to the topic of narcissists and narcissistic people, and why someone will find themselves continually choosing
these just sort of toxic people or unhealthy people, or people who just don't treat them with the love and respect that they deserve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Repeatedly.
Yeah. Well, there's a few things. One, I'm going to first share the one that's not as obvious and not sort of talked about in the zeitgeist. Naivete for some people. They just don't know. They don't know any better. They don't know. Some people, they don't realize that there are people who have a dark side that can hurt them emotionally. I mean, physically, that goes without saying, but even emotionally. They don't really realize they actually may come from a good family, and they haven't actually been around the block enough, so to speak, to know that they're just, they don't know when they're being manipulated.
Right.
So for a lot of people, and maybe this isn't like your friends, but out there in the world, a lot of people, you'd be surprised, are actually quite naive.
Oh, I've learned that.
Yeah. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that you could have had a parent who was a narcissist. And so there's something familiar in your dynamic with them that feels, and familiar is, it's not that this person looks like your parent necessarily. And personality wise, they could be very, very different. They could present themselves as very different. But how you feel when they're around them feels very familiar. And we gravitate towards the familiar. We just do, even when it's uncomfortable. Low self-worth, low self-esteem, not really knowing or understanding truly and fully that number one, the kind of love that you want, where you are respected and cherished and treated with kindness, not believing that exists, and or not believing that you are somehow deserving of that. And that's a tricky one, because a lot of people will say, well, of course I believe that I'm deserving of that. Or, I have a lot of confidence in my friendships or in work. And it can be very, very tricky. When it's a pattern, you really do have to say, like, ask yourself, do I believe that the kind of love that I want exists? And do I believe that I'm deserving of it? Is there somewhere in my belief system, like a lot of people will think, well, that's just not possible for me. And they don't have enough examples of what a respectful relationship looks like. They're not seeing it. So they don't have the education, and they didn't see it growing up. And then there's just the immaturity. And this is not a diss. It's just, we have to all call it what it is. And I've been there too. Which kind of goes in with the naivete of, well, this person's really hot. I'm really attracted to them. We have this very deep connection. And they don't take the time to really uncover the person's character. Or the person's character reveals itself a few months in, and you're already so intertwined. And women in particular, although this happens with men too, because we value love and connection at a very high level, we will do anything to prevent the loss of love. So if you take a woman and she has a pattern of being with, let's say, men who don't treat her very well, and she only really discovers this, like his true colors comes out 3 months in, after there's a lot of connection and a lot of
love bombing.
Or just love bombing, and but there's attachment that's formed after 3 months, right? And so she doesn't want to face the loss of connection and love. And then you throw in a little low self-esteem, and then you throw in all the other elements that I talked about just in these last few minutes. And it becomes a very difficult thing for her to say, no,
right,
not doing this. But the antidote is to understand why you keep getting involved in this. Like, what is the pattern? What are you deserving of? And this is why I always say, a person's character is way more important than their charm. And don't go necessarily for, I say this to women all the time, and especially for women who date men, I'm like, don't go for the guy who's used to getting all the girls and any girl that he wants, because he's not going to put any effort.
It's so true, by the way.
It's very true. And the same could be said for some women.
Right. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
How do you feel about those who sleep together really, first date? Very early on.
Yeah.
Before developing anything.
So I have no moral judgment on it. I think that you just have to know yourself. Just when you have sex with someone, it does not mean you're in a relationship with them. And it does not mean that they actually even value you. And it doesn't mean that they like you. It means they want to fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could be sleeping with someone and they're feeling all these things. They really, really like you. But you don't feel that way, you know? So the meaning that we assign to sex and physical intimacy varies for everyone. And so if you're someone who, once you do that with someone who you really like, you can lie to yourself all you want about how it's okay, you can do it, no big deal. But it's better to be honest with yourself about what it means to you and to get very clear on the fact that, you might never see that person again. And are you okay with that? So I just like to encourage people. It's amazing when I started to do this work, what was like truly amazing to me was how many people are ready to get naked with each other, but don't want to have a conversation with each other.
I'm always surprised by that too.
It's
and not
shocking.
in a judging way.
Not in a judging way.
Just like,
it's just an interesting thing about human nature.
Because I'm like, I've actually asked some people in my life, like, how do you just, I'm really curious because I've shared this before and people have said like, it felt as if I was judging or shaming, and I'm absolutely not, because I think it's everyone's choice. And by the way, I know people who have slept together the first moment they ever met
and they're
so happily married. So you just never know.
You never know.
But I know for myself, it's like an energy exchange of giving my soul to another person.
Because that's the meaning that you assign to the act.
Right.
And so people can't shame you. You're just giving an example of that's what it means to you.
Absolutely.
And for others, it might mean it's just an expression of my sexuality and I feel freedom with it. Whatever it is, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So it's the meaning that you assign to it.
And I've just always been curious to be like, well, how does it work? Like, and then when that's it? Like, I'm just like, it just makes me feel like I'm nervous for them. Like, I'm like, and sometimes they never see them again or hear from them again.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so it's just about being honest with yourself. And I would say that if you get your heart broken a lot, if your self-esteem is lower than what it needs to be, if you've been ghosted a lot after intimacy, then I have no problem saying you need to wait. And then people have these ridiculous rules. Well, I wait, till the 5th date. It's like, that's ridiculous. You might as well just do it on the 1st date. It's not the number of dates. It's where it's if you two are aligned and you have to decide what you want. Do you want to wait until there's monogamy? Do you want to wait until there's a deeper connection? What do you want? This is part of you and you having your own back and going out into the dating world so that you protect your energy and you protect your heart.
I mean, you wrote, and then this is your first book.
It's my first book.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Something to celebrate.
Yeah.
It's beyond.
It's a lot of work. Yeah.
And the title, like it just gets me at my core.
Oh, good.
Because it's what I believe with everything inside of me, that it begins with you.
Yeah.
And I can just see myself handing this out to so many people that I know, because it's one of those things that it's up to you.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to really want to do this inner work in order to reflect that relationship that you want. My cards. My cards I don't use. My security blanket.
Exactly. I mean, yeah. I think it's whether you're in a relationship, whether you've been in a marriage for 20 years or you're single, you're heartbroken. I wanted people to understand that they have so much more influence over the state of their lives, particularly their love lives, than they think. And so I want people to feel empowered. I recognize that the common denominator in all my relationships with me, that does not mean that I was the problem. It means though that the relationships that were really lovely, part of the reason why it was lovely because I was in it and because of how I was in it and how I was showing up and who I chose. I realized the relationships that were really terrible, it's because of certain patterns in me and also the way I selected. So if people want to improve their love lives, they have to realize that it's never going to work blaming your past, blaming your childhood, blaming your ex, blaming your partner. And it's not going to work with you blaming yourself. But you have to be able to look in the mirror and be like, okay, what needs to shift? What needs to change? How do I need to step? What do I need to do? What boundaries do I have to have up? What boundaries do I need to let go of? Yeah.
I love how you always shoot it really straight too.
I try.
You do. It's always just like, but it's with this undertone of love for people to
Yeah, I want
build
people
that
to feel
love
yeah.
within themselves.
Yeah.
Can you go through the 9 hard truths that will change your
Yeah.
life?
Oh my God.
Because
Yes. Okay. Let's see if I just get them in the right order because I've said them so many times. Okay. So the first one is it begins with you. And that's the first truth because, everyone, there isn't a single person who doesn't in some way fear that they're not enough. Now, there's a big spectrum there, right? Because people vary in their self-esteem and their self-confidence and their self-love. But when it comes to a romantic relationship, there's nothing like a romantic relationship that's going to trigger your fear of not being enough. And for some people, it's parenthood too, right? Like I'm not, whatever it is, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not heavy enough, my boobs are not big enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm not cool enough, I'm not whatever enough. And to be human is to struggle with our value. So if you can understand that whatever your triggers are or whatever your behavior is, that's not serving you in your life, in your relationship life, if you peel away the onion, what you're going to get at the core is the fear that you are going to not lose love because that truly is our oxygen. So understanding that it begins with you and really understanding that not only does it begin with you, but understanding that where that fear comes from for you. And then the second truth is, I believe your mind is a battlefield. I should have my notes. Or the mind is a battlefield. That's where I talk about the story, how easy it is to get in our heads, to create stories and meanings about ourselves and about the person that we're in a relationship with or the person who we're dating that builds a ton of resentment and also creates a lot of disempowering emotion. So we could easily get in our heads about our partner not loving us because of something that they did or didn't do. And we create a story. We're story making machines. We're meaning making machines. And so the mind, if we don't watch our mind, the monkey mind that can go from one branch to another, and become very neurotic very easily. This is something that sabotages relationships. And it's something that I've seen sabotage relationships and sabotage dating scenarios more than anything else.
I used to be like that.
Yeah. It can be really intense. I can definitely, and we can just easily do that. I mean, how often do we do that just with everything? It's
Right.
like, oh, and then we make these assumptions about the other person. And so the more that we get stuck in that thought and that narrative without having any proof, without having the conversation, we get ourselves into serious trouble. Lust is not love. Sounds pretty obvious, but what I've found is that the things that we miss most easily are the obvious things. It's like, oh, that was right in front of my face. Yes, that was. But yet you missed it. So lust is not love. And I think that a lot of people, we feel when we meet someone and we feel that rush of excitement, really what that's doing is reminding us that we're alive and we feel so alive. And we think that must be love or they must be the one. When really they are just showing something, they are just reflecting back to you what is already capable, you're already capable of. Or they're reflecting back to you something that has been dormant inside of you for so long. And while another person can trigger this inside of us in a way that maybe that's very unique. There are certainly times where we've been listening to our favorite music or doing our favorite hobby. For some people, it's hiking to the top of a mountain or dancing, where we've had those moments of oneness where we feel so connected and so euphoric. And it's in those moments where we feel like we don't need anything other than this moment. And so that lives inside of us. The other person triggers it, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're the person for you. They're just like a messenger in a way.
I think people are also waiting for that
Yes.
feeling. And I find, I mean, I feel like I hear it so much in New York, um, that it's not a great city for dating or he's not my type. And I know you hear that all the time. And I'm
Yes.
just like, okay, but, I'm not feeling it. And I get it. Like chemistry is chemistry, but I
Yes.
think people are, I know that I was waiting for that feeling.
Yeah.
I was waiting for this to be like swept off my feet, like intoxicating. And it was the complete opposite.
Was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was because,
Were you friends first?
yes, we were friends first. We knew each other. And I felt really safe with him. And I realized that that was the most important thing for me.
Yes.
Coming from a dysfunctional background and just never even feeling safe in my own body, a completely dysregulated nervous system. And it was not, it was like the highs weren't high. They were so calm and neutral. And I was like, I pushed it away though.
Yeah.
Because I was the person who
wanted the fireworks.
I wanted the fireworks. And if there wasn't any, I would literally make a fire. Like I was drama infused.
I see. So you would push buttons and try to instigate fighting.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. A lot of women do that for sure. Yeah.
I was absolutely like that. And I can own that entirely now because I'm such a different person.
Yeah.
And like just any sense of drama at all now, I can't be around it where it used to just be my baseline.
Yes. Yeah.
And I craved that in relationships.
Sure. And a lot of people crave that in relationships because they feel very bored.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
And it's usually on that like third year, I'm like,
yeah, let's see what I can do here. Yeah.
To stir things up.
Yeah. And also, look, if a relationship, some relationships, if they're too one note, will do things to stir things up because it creates this little friction. The friction creates a little bit of passion. But I think we have to have the self-awareness of that we're doing that and not do it and not try to create passion that way, where you're sabotaging or hurting someone's feelings or anything like that.
Okay. It's true. I mean, I used to do all the things.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
It just makes me like just know that people can change too. Like I'm like, it's just change is so possible when you want it.
Yes. Did you just get sick and tired of the pain?
I did.
Yeah.
I got so sick of it. I got sick of myself now.
Yeah. You have to, a lot of people don't change until they get really sick and tired of themselves.
Yeah. I was sick of my own bullshit and just like the bullshit I believed, the bullshit I fed other people. And I was like so exhausted by it.
Lust is not love, but it can feel a lot like love because we've been conditioned to believe that that is love, that if I'm not feeling that intensity, then it must not be love. Lust is passion, lust is fun, it's all those things, but it's not actually love. And then people rush into playing house with each other and saying, I love this person, like I would die. And we see this in the movies all the time. I would die for you. I've known you 1 week. And it's not. And love is a selfless thing. Love is not just all feeling. It's giving, it's receiving, it's a choice, it's a practice. And it demands of us mindfulness. And it demands of us creativity. And it demands of us selflessness. and it demands of us resilience. And we don't have enough examples of enduring love.
Oh, it's so good because I
Yeah.
think that's what people are waiting for.
Yes. So, I would never tell someone, I, of course you want chemistry. You want to be attracted. I would never
Right.
say if you want to have sex with your partner, like can't be with someone who you don't want to have sex with.
Right.
That's settling.
Mm.
But the person who you meet where you're like, oh my God, they're just perfect looking and everything about them, and you're just totally ungrounded and you think they're amazing. That whole thing, what that really is you believing that you are below this person, that they are actually out of your league. If you're going to feel that crazy about someone who you don't know, you've made them way more important and special than they actually are. And by doing that, you're wanting them to want you, and that's going to make you feel validated. If you think someone wanting it, so needing that validation is basically translated to, I'm not good enough for them. And we do that with people who are actually, the amount of people who do that with other people who are actually not that great. How many times have you or maybe one of your friends have looked back and be like, I can't believe I dated that person? Like, what was I thinking?
All the time.
All the time. But then at the time, you're like, put them on a pedestal. It's ridiculous. You need to get to know someone actually what they stand for and what their character is and what their morals are and what their values are. And most importantly, how they treat you.
Mm.
The most underrated standard for a relationship. Get someone who is nice to you. Really, really, really nice to you, like really
That's
respectful.
it. Like that is the ultimate for me.
Yeah, it's very important. And that doesn't mean that every time you meet someone who's a great person, you're going to be attracted to them. That's how the cookie crumbles.
That was what made me more attracted to my friend at the
Yeah,
time when you don't see someone a certain way
yes, because of how he
that's
made you feel.
that's how he made me feel.
And then I would imagine, but you can verify that you also saw things in him that you admired and really respected in the person.
So much.
Yeah. And that's very important.
Very.
Mm-hmm.
It was the thing that really made me realize what I thought was love before.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was a lot of all of the things that you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Okay, what's the next one? Oh, these are so good.
I hope I'm getting them in order, but it's okay.
Do you want to look?
I know.
We can cut
it's on there.
that.
So this is an interesting. You have to love yourself. But what I say, like you actually do have to love yourself. But what I break it down in the chapter. There's two camps of thought. One is you don't have to love yourself. You learn how to love yourself in relationship. That's how you learn how to love yourself is through other people. And then there's another camp that says you have to love yourself and feel fully whole before you enter a relationship. I think it's somewhere in the middle. We can't really, we get our self-esteem through our surroundings and through the people in it. Because everyone you meet and you are close with has a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And they're reflecting back to you. And so we're social animals, so we can't even have a sense of self without other people. It's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So people who are chronically isolated don't really have a true sense of self because you need other people to get that from. And you can raise it, how you problem solve in a relationship can raise your self-esteem. How you learn to love inside of a relationship can raise your self-esteem. Because I talk about self-love as self-acceptance. And so you don't have to fully accept yourself in order to be loved in a relationship. But if your self-esteem is in the gutter and you truly don't see yourself as deserving, you better believe it that your relationships are going to reflect how you feel about yourself. So it is important to accept yourself. And it's a lifelong journey. but your decisions get better and how you operate in a relationship gets better. So having, really low self-esteem and low self-worth has very detrimental consequences in your relationship. But again, it doesn't have to be perfect because you can meet that person who sees something in you that you've never seen in yourself. And then you can rise above, like you rose above so much of your old patterns to actually be able to fall in love with your current husband. And whether you realize that or not, that gave you a stronger sense of self.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It totally changed my life.
Yeah.
And I know that I would not be doing any of this.
Mm-hmm.
I know that if I didn't have that foundation of love that I needed so badly that I'd never had in my life in that
Yes.
way, it helped me to like see myself
Yes.
and to love myself.
Yes. So there you go. And then there's case studies in there about how this sort of plays out and how to build your self-esteem. That goes beyond just saying I love you to yourself.
Mm.
And I'm not saying that, I'm not poo-pooing that, but it's the things that we say to ourselves. It's the way that we have to challenge ourselves. We have to challenge ourselves. You must speak up and tell the truth. You must speak up and tell the truth. I think that lots of people lie to themselves. They lie in their relationships. And I'm not even talking about the kind of lies of cheating and betrayal. The lies of, I'm too afraid to have this conversation. I'm too afraid to tell the truth because I'm afraid that if I do, maybe you won't look at me the same way and you won't love me anymore. And so, yes, where self-assertion is part of that, it's really being able to be honest. I was so afraid to rock the boat because this book was inspired by the death of my my marriage many years ago. And then with all the work that I've done with people. And what I realize, how many times I've worked with singles and couples where they're so afraid to tell each other the truth and they're so afraid to tell themselves the truth.
Mm.
And this isn't about like, oh, honey, does my butt look big? And your spouse is like, no, you look fine. Like maybe you can, a little white lie here and there could be nice. You can get away with that. This is about really fundamental truths, and relationships thrive on the truth. Without it, you get resentment. Without it, you lose yourself. Without it, relationships fall apart quickly, really quickly. So I like to give scripts and different scenarios so that people know what to say and how to say it. Because speaking the truth, there's an art to speaking the truth. There's a little bit of a science. Sometimes you have to be very, very, very direct and firm. Sometimes you have to be direct, but more vulnerable.
Yeah.
It depends. Every situation is different and there's nuance there. But there's always an undercurrent of directness. And I think that being direct, as long as it's not harsh or cold, is important. Some people need to soften their delivery. Yeah. And a lot of people have to muster up the courage to be more clear.
I had to soften my edges. I'm very, very proud to say that I have. I used to really be quick on the tongue and just say things that were so harsh.
In all your relationships, or?
Oh God, the previous ones. I'm so sorry to all of you. Let me just take a moment. I've grown.
Yeah.
Yes. And my current more in the beginning. But I really feel as if I hope he doesn't listen to this one, that I am very different with approaching things head on. And I'm a very direct person in business.
Yeah.
In every relationship in my life. Sometimes I can still be a little harsh with certain friends. I'll admit that.
Yeah.
And I'm working.
A little tough love.
I'm too much tough love where now I'm trying not to say too much.
Yes.
And just let things be.
Yes.
Because once again, I try to implement myself as the fixer and help solve problems that are not mine to be solved.
Yes. Yeah.
But I feel like owning that in therapy and being honest and even speaking with Noah about it together has helped me soften
Yeah.
my approach with everything.
Yeah.
Because it can be ugly.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point is that if we're trying to influence people, and we're trying to whatever influence them, their decision making, we want to speak in such a way that it's hearable.
Yeah.
And so that's why communication is such a delicate art.
Mm.
It really is. And sometimes it's just about saying, look, what I'm about to say is not going to be easy to hear.
Mm.
That actually I learned that from Chris Voss. Like that can actually soften the blow a little bit and just like prepare the person and to let them know to brace themselves for something that's not going to be difficult. And then usually what they hear has actually a softer landing than you would think. Yeah.
I like that.
You never want to say, we need to talk.
I hate when people do that to me.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's very manipulative and it's just not a good communication strategy because know that when you say that, the other person immediately becomes avoidant.
Well, you think something's wrong.
Yeah, so you just want to run away.
Right. That's so funny. That's one of my biggest things. And I've shared it with like family members. Like, it's so jarring to the system.
Yeah,
I like go
intense.
into immediate emergency mode. Just like, when you have a second,
yeah,
give me a call. Like that, I'm like, I can handle that.
Yeah,
like it just
would love to chat with you when you have a second. Just give me a call. Yeah.
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 There really is such an art to
There really is.
vocabulary.
There really
You
really
have
is.
such a way with words.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate
You
that.
do.
I try. But as you know, when you're like in the thick of a romantic relationship, like a lot of your tools when you're triggered can go out. Exactly. Exactly. So this is not easy work. It's you're going to make a lot of mistakes in relationships. It's about accountability and really owning your part because it does begin with you. And so that kind of accountability is very, very important. Like, so sorry, I lost my temper with that. Like, I'm so sorry. That's not how I wanted it to come out. This is really what I meant. So it's not about perfection. And sometimes when you're trying to communicate a hard thing and you don't, maybe your emotional state, you're too overwhelmed to articulate. Or maybe you're just not someone was raised in a very emotive family and putting words to your experience and your feelings is difficult for you. One thing that you can do is just say, I'm just feeling a lot of tension in my chest right now. Or I'm feeling a lot of tension in my belly and I'm just feeling very, very overwhelmed right now. Like my body feels very tight and I just need to catch my breath. Like you can do that.
Yeah.
You can do that. You can speak because and that actually provokes empathy and compassion from the other person because we can all relate to the physical sensations that are associated with different feelings. We can all relate to it. So in that moment, even if you're not saying all the right things or you're just not able to express yourself, speak to the sensations in your body.
That's so helpful.
Yeah, it's important.
It is. I think, and I love to just like take a minute too, because I feel like I can easily just be reactive. And I think just learning to take just like a minute and maybe not have a response in that moment just helps me like collect myself.
Very important.
Yes.
It's the regulation of emotions.
Yeah.
I found that couples who have like sort of a code word for when one or both it's escalating and you can feel the overwhelmment happening. And then that's when they know like, okay, let's take a little time out and then come back to this when we're calmer.
I like that.
Very important.
Yeah.
Very important. Okay, the other truth. No one is coming to save you. This is a hard truth because I think that people, they know this, like I said, they know this intellectually, but we have this unconscious desire that, or belief that with the right person, all our problems are going to go away. And that's not true. I do think that when you are in a good relationship, a solid, safe, foundational relationship, it gives you wings. Like it gives you courage and it gives you wings. But the things that you confront within yourself are still there. And there's, like I said, there's no perfect person who's going to come and just make everything better for you. And what we do is when we have this belief, the right relationship's going to make everything better, or this person is amazing. And then we transition out of the honeymoon stage. And then this person is like, we see, oh, they're flawed. Or how come I don't feel as amazing as I did the first couple of months? There must be something wrong with them or something wrong with the relationship. And that's not the same thing as picking up on clues of someone's character, right? Like that's something else. And we forget, no, because they're flawed. And so are you. And now the real work begins in building a relationship. And so there's no one on this earth who exists to complete you. There's no one on this earth who exists to fill all of your voids, your emotional voids. And if we project our ideal onto this person, and as soon as they show any, sign of like they can't meet your needs all at once, or they're flawed, or they're just like they're dealing with their own crap, then we start to panic. And so we have to learn how to meet our own needs. Needs are very important in a relationship. No, I've never known anyone to ever break up with anyone where their core needs were being met at a high level. People don't break up when their needs are being met. And neediness is actually a real thing, because I know there's some talk out there. There's no such thing as neediness. It's just you're someone who has needs. No, neediness is very real.
I think it's the cause of a lot of challenging. I think it's the ultimate.
Yes, it's one of the
thing that breaks people up.
A lot of the times. Look, you could be feeling needy in your relationship because legitimately your needs are not being met. And they're not being met because you're not speaking up and telling the truth. They're not being met because maybe the person you're with is not the right person for you. So you can feel needy, and it could be a symptom of your dynamic with this person. And you could also feel needy because you have not learned how to meet your needs. And I teach all this in the book because it's so important, especially for the people who have this fantasy of the knight in shining armor, someone coming into your life and rescuing you. And your life is just going to be better with this person. Or maybe you're in the relationship and you're constantly, you have that expectation that this person needs to be always saving you from something or giving you safety when you don't know how to feel safe inside your body at all.
It's the expectations.
It's those expectations. And you have to be able to do that for yourself, because your partner can make your life better. Your partner can make you smile. Your partner can add a significant amount of value to your life. But your partner alone can't give your life meaning and purpose.
Oh my God, I could not agree more.
And nor can your kids.
Agreed.
And we do this, we rely on others to give our lives meaning and purpose. And so you have to be able to look in the mirror and look within and think, okay, what Do I have my own back? For some people, it's learning how to become financially independent. For some people, it's learning how to have their own back in other ways. And so for some people, it's knowing how to have an adventure so that you're not waiting for the relationship for the adventure. You're having it now. So no one is coming to save you. And like I said, these are things that people, I think, like they know on the surface, but this book will really challenge you to really look at your belief system. You have to be your best self past the honeymoon. Now, we are not going to always be our best self, but part of being our higher self and not the saboteur of a relationship is when we are kind of being a little shitty, we take full ownership and we apologize from a very genuine place. But many of us in the beginning of a relationship, like we put our best foot forward. We're taking care of ourselves. We're like, we are like, we're like the PR rep. It's like, let me rein this person in and then I'll show them like my ugly, And we have to continue to be innovative in our relationships well past that honeymoon phase. Because a lot of times relationships, they fall apart because we stop doing and being the things that we did in the beginning.
That's so true.
And so, yes, I think that part of the beauty of a long-term relationship is that comfort and that friendship. And there's a danger to becoming too comfortable, where it's like you're just not treating your partner or the relationship as if it's a gift in your life. And that it's, a safe relationship isn't so fragile. Like you want to be able to have fights and know like you can have a fight and It does not mean anything for your love. But also know that, no one, anyone can leave you at any time.
I know.
Yeah.
I always say that. I'm like, you just never know in life.
Yeah. But if you take, and we take each other for granted. That's just kind of what we do. It's a law of familiarity. And we do that with family members, and we know our family members are going to love us anyway, but it just doesn't work like that in a romantic relationship. So my marriage lasted 2 years. And I feel like I spent those 2 years trying to convince this man that I was enough. And I did that by not telling the truth. I did that through little lies. I did that through pretending like I was okay with certain things when I wasn't. I did that with abandoning myself, and that's not on him, that's on me. I mean, he plays a role in it for sure. He's responsible too, but I am too. When he abruptly left, I told myself I was not going to beg. I'd been basically begging indirectly for 2 years. And I was going to let him go. I was not going to try to convince him to love me. It is a law of the land that you cannot convince someone to love you, to choose you, to want to be with you, to not leave. You just can't. And so I think there's a fine line when you try to fight for your relationship. And then you also have to know when you're just trying to fight to be enough for someone. And letting go is very difficult for everyone, but your life will become so much easier when you are not trying to strategize to get someone to choose you, strategize to get someone to stay. I mean, if you convince your partner to stay in the relationship when they want to go, you're only holding them hostage emotionally. And you're living with that. You know it, you feel it. That you're trading in your fear of losing them with the pain of knowing that you had to convince them to stay against their better judgment. And so it's a lose-lose for everyone. And we can do it in subtle ways. All the strategizing to get someone to choose you, trying to be the cool girl, the cool this or the cool that, whatever it is. And it never works. Never. So can never try to convince someone to love you. All you can do is be yourself, be loving yourself, be authentic, tell the truth, and do your part into making a relationship work. But if someone wants out, you have to let them leave. And you will realize in time why your destiny is no longer tied to this person. But it's very, very, very important. It never, ever works. Because, when I was younger, I would try to convince, and then, the person feels guilty and they stay, and
Right.
you know it.
Mm.
So the moment that they really are like firm and they want to leave, or the moment they're just like, you're dating someone and they're not really choosing you, it's wrap.
Yeah. Did you hear from him after he left?
Yes. I mean, it was like sort of like a longer breakup after that.
Yeah. Was he surprised that you didn't try?
I don't know if he was surprised or not.
Mhm.
Probably relieved,
Mm.
but I don't know if he was surprised.
Yeah.
But I did not at all. I made it as easy as it possibly could because I accepted
Yeah.
that this person's part in my story was over.
Mm.
I didn't want to accept it, but I accepted that this was the reality of it. And I certainly was not going to, be in a relationship where I had to convince someone to stay. So, and the last chapter was the last truth is you have to make peace with your parents. And that's going to make a lot of people gulp.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've been saying is, and I put this in the book, you don't have to make peace with your parents with the people who molested you or there was severe abuse. In fact, I'd rather you never speak to them again, honestly. But and for people who I've worked with who've had that experience, my job with them is to help them feel like heroes in their life rather than just survivors.
Yeah.
And making peace with a parent, you could even have a very good relationship with your parent. It is about removing the chokehold that your story with your parent has around your neck and your body that is preventing you from having the relationship that you want.
Mm.
Because our childhood will show up in our adulthood. And so maybe that's as mild as your parent always wanted you to be a doctor, but in your heart, you're really an artist. And you've always gone the path of being a doctor, so you're not really being your true self.
Mm.
So that's impacting your life. But it can also impact your love life because you don't really feel like you're being yourself in the relationship. It does not mean that you have to have a relationship with your parent. But if internally you can change the way you tell yourself and live out the narrative that you have about your parent, so that you are not viewing your relationship with them through the filter of your past self, of your child self, but of who you are now. And that was probably my biggest spiritual work with my father. And so I wrote that truth in that chapter from a very personal experience with, a father who was not a good father by anyone's standard and highly narcissistic and a lot of toxicity and a lot of pain. Sort of like, well, if I can do it, you can do it. And this is what it sort of looks like. And like I said, even if you love your parent, I think it's going to challenge the person to even strengthen their already strong relationship with one or both of their parents.
Mm. Do you think it's possible for a narcissist to change?
It's a very good question. So the short answer is no. However, can they in their older age become softer and have some self-awareness? Yes. I saw it in my father. I think it also depends on intelligence, how intelligent the person is. I think that someone with a higher degree of intelligence, and I'm not talking about emotional intelligence, I'm just saying intelligence,
Right.
can sort of find their way to a little bit of softness and accountability with older age. But the reason why I started with no is because if you're in a relationship with one, then waiting for them to change or thinking that you can change them is a losing battle. But look, my father was married to my stepmother for like 30 years like over something like that, a really long time. And so, when I'm judging from the outside looking in, narcissist, she's a complete codependent, and I could say all those things about it, and it's true. But they actually really loved each other. Like she really actually loved him and felt deeply close to him. So I don't know how that actually works.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to try to psychoanalyze it.
Mm-hmm.
Why people find each other and why and how in the hell it works. And maybe she spent a lot of years repressed or suppressed. I don't know. But this was not, certainly not a battered woman when he died. And because he died a year ago when I was writing the chapter.
Oh my God.
On it is when he passed. Crazy.
My God.
Yeah. So can a narcissist change? Narcissism exists on a spectrum. It depends what other things happen in that person's life. But if you're in a relationship with one and you're like thinking that maybe they can change or heal, chances are, they're just always going to be a very difficult person to be in a relationship with.
Do you feel like social media has brought on more narcissistic traits within people? I feel like everyone has been saying that. Like, social media has made everyone a narcissist. And I'm like, I don't know that that's entirely true, but I do think
I think that what social media has done is that it's very easy to get obsessed with self, obsessed with our business, obsessed with how we're being perceived, obsessed with, our work. And self-obsession doesn't lead to happiness. It actually leads to depression. So whether you want to call that narcissism or not, I just tend to see it as just sort of like a little bit too much focus on the self.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely helpful when social media, when you're using it as a platform to help others. But even in that, I'm sure you've experienced, I know I've experienced, it's like, how's that going to land? Like you're thinking about yourself a lot.
Yeah, sometimes I get so sick of I'm sick of myself.
Yeah, sick of myself, sick of thinking about myself.
Yeah, I'm just like, and I get it. And like, I share a lot, but I'm just like, sometimes I'm just like, I need to like detox on myself.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
No, it does.
Yeah. What I do see on social media is everyone's a love bomber, everyone's a narcissist, everyone's, using these therapy speech to describe other people. And that's a very, very slippery slope. Look, there's a lot of selfish, immature people out there. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are a narcissist.
Right.
But does it matter if they're selfish and immature? You don't want to be in a relationship with them.
Right.
Period. You don't have to label it and diagnose it.
Right.
Unless you were like severely abused by someone verbally and emotionally, and you're trying to really understand what just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so curious just to end
Yeah.
this amazing, knowledgeable, like there's just so much that you gave in this episode. But I want to ask you how you take care of yourself, but you meditate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can tell.
I'm a yogi. I taught yoga for almost 20 years before I went into this work. So I've been practicing yoga for about 25 years.
Wow.
So that's I mean, I also love Pilates and stuff. And I love everything that you put out. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I love to mix it up. I also love to dance. I've been dancing for a long time. But my true love is yoga. And yes, and so I've been meditating and I play with different meditation styles. But yeah, that's how I take care of myself. And when I'm really busy and not doing that, I notice a real, like it's not good. It's not pretty.
Oh my God, me too.
Yeah.
Like I had even just a couple weeks ago where it was like, I think I I moved like 2 or 3 days and I was like, no,
Yeah.
I have to do
Do
something
something.
every day
Yeah.
because, and like after that moment, and of course life happens and things
Yeah, of
sometimes,
course.
but I just realized like when I really commit and remain devoted
It
to
makes a
doing
huge difference.
it, I'm so different.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy. And I feel like I
Yeah.
need less things
Yes.
to support my own inner contentment.
I feel very much the same way. Very much the same way. And I would say that other than that, I'm a very low maintenance person. Like, I don't really have like a skincare routine. Like, I wash my face with like, kind of like a natural bar of soap, and
Yeah.
then I throw on like Wellita, like skin
Mm.
food, and that's like it.
Well, it works.
I mean, but I might be getting to the point where I should be doing more. And I do love a good bath, but I don't really do like I don't do all that. As long as I'm doing yoga and meditating, like the rest kind of like I
Mm.
figure it out.
I mean, I love all the things, but I feel like the meditation and movement is just like my
That's the main
magic.
thing.
It just makes me come to life.
Yes. And
Like,
also there's only so many hours in a day.
yeah.
So I would love to be like spending 5 hours every morning on my self-care. I really, really, really would. But I can't.
I hear you. That's why 20 minutes. I did 20 minutes today, and I'm
And
just like,
sometimes 20 minutes is amazing. And 20 minutes is better than nothing. And I think a lot of people need to realize that, especially when it comes to movement.
biggest thing.
Because they think, oh, well, I don't have an hour. What's the point? No, 20 minutes is the point.
It
Yeah.
exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
That is my biggest
Yeah. It makes a big difference.
and after having kids too, like, I mean, I used to think that I needed an hour
Mhm.
minimum. And now I'm like, I'm doing my 15-minute arms and 15-minute
Yeah.
abs. And I'm
Like,
just like,
that's
this
fine.
formula works
Yeah.
if you commit.
Yeah.
It's the commitment.
It's the commitment and the consistency.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It changes everything.
Totally.
Okay, last question.
Yes.
This podcast is called Move with Heart. And I'd love to know what it means to you to move with your heart.
Oh, that's such a good question. To move with my heart. So I'm thinking about dancing and I'm thinking about yoga because I'm thinking of like physical movement
Yeah.
because we're just talking about it. But now I'm thinking about like living with heart,
Mm.
being present,
Mm.
being present. If I'm present with my yoga practice or with my dance or with anything, then I feel very rooted in my heart.
Mhm.
Whenever I try my best to multitask or to like be like, okay, I just need to do this so I can get to the next thing,
The worst.
then I am not in my heart. I'm in my head. The experience sucks. I might as well have not done it. And so that's just what came to my mind.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I felt so present here with you.
I felt the
I
same
was
way.
like
Thank
so
you.
locked in. Thank you so much. I love the work that you share. You
Thank you.
have been a guest that I've been like, I manifested you.
Mm.
And then last year at the Wellness Oasis.
Yes, we met. That's when we first met.
And I was like, okay. But it's interesting. I feel
I
like
know,
when
the
you
full
start
circle.
aligning your life with
Yes.
people who like elevate your consciousness and help you see things in a different way,
Yes.
that help you show up in a different light. Like I mean, that's why I love having this podcast because it gives me this opportunity to almost like selfishly feel like we just went on a date.
Totally. I feel you 100%.
Right? Like it's
100%.
such a gift.
It's such like, yeah, it's like, when do we have like this very special one-on-one time with people?
Right.
Yeah.
Rarely.
Rare, yeah.
But where can everyone find you? Give us your podcast, everything.
Yeah. So
your book.
Yeah, the book, JillianTurecki.com/book, JillianTurecki.com, Jillian Turecki on social media, and then my podcast, which is called Jillian on Love.
It's phenomenal.
Thank you.
And this will be out when we share this. So.
Yes.
And you're pre-selling it now.
I'm pre-selling it
yes.
now. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.